So you spoke about the fact that in the holding space project, when I asked you about what breaks your heart about what men are carrying, you started off by saying trauma, right? Um, you expanded later on childhood trauma and all that kind of stuff. So I'd maybe like to start the session before we open up to the floor. Is just for you to just expand on your experiences with the stuff that men have opened up about in the Holding Space project.
It kind of feels like I'm selling people out, but I'm not. I mean, I think my experience, and again, I'm gonna bring it to myself, right? And what I struggle with. I mean, if we look at, I mean, we all knew Ricky. Ricky, right?
We spoke about
We looked at Ricky. I mean, Ricky looked like he had it all together. Beautiful black man, successful, the trimmings, and then suicide, right? So my assessment or my judgment of that, he's in pain, right? Because I've been in pain before, and I felt suicidal, of feeling not good enough. I spoke earlier about not having a job, like the impact of that. I did another podcast and I said, who am I without the money? Who am I? Who's Mervyn? Who am I? Who am I without the salary? And a friend of mine said, my self-worth does not have to, my self-worth does not equal my net worth, right? Right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I had to figure that out, like, who am I without all these things? And obviously, someone mentioned earlier that they did a lot of work on themselves. You mentioned you did a lot of work on yourself. So with me as well, I had to and it was a healing time, it was a time to actually go down deep within. I mean, I did the most stupidest thing. I went to go do like a 10-day silent retreat. It was crazy. But anyway, I mean, it invoked so many emotions. I mean, my head wouldn't stop. My head was just talking a lot of shit in my ear, of like weirdest things. I mean, even dysfunctional relationships. I'm talking about relationships with females, and convincing me that I need to. But again, it's that thing of filling the hole, right? Filling the hole in the soul with external stuff. So only if she tells me how good I am I enough, right? Or, if you guys give me affirmation, then I'm enough, which is bullshit because, it's an inside job, right? So again, I mean, trauma, for me, there was sexual abuse stuff as well that happened as a little boy. And I'm grateful, like, my dad believed me. When that incident happened, I went home and I was 13. I was a 13-year-old boy. I went across the road. And my dad was like, and I told my brother and my sister. My brother was still alive at the time. And I said, this is what happened. And they were like, no, he wouldn't do that. The perpetrator. And my dad came from work and my dad believed me. And that was comforting in itself, like this little boy being believed, right? And made me feel like, that I've got a voice. And anyway, long story short, we lost the case, and, and also, I mean, like in communities, in townships, everyone knows everyone's business. So it also looked like this 13-year-old boy was like trying to cause shit, So, because that was also the story that went around. And again, shame. I felt a lot of shame. I felt embarrassed because this was like, people knew the person, and it also kind of, friendships. It made friendships uncomfortable as well, But again, it's like, for me, it's like the stuff that I just keep inside. It's all bottled up. And hence the drugs became the relief, right? Because when I drank, I felt sexy. Do you know what I mean? I could talk to girls. I could, my tongue was on fleek, I felt good looking. I mean, I had braces, I had, I had eczema, a skin condition. I felt very self-conscious of myself. So obviously, I mean, there was all these like self-esteem issues, like not feeling enough, like feeling like I'm enough. I mean, I do stupid shit. Like we'd go after church. We'd go to ShopRite, and I'd like fill my blazer with, go steal at ShopRite, you know, shoplifting. And that's how I also felt like a sense of I belonged, because then my friends were like, yeah, you know, you know what I mean? So obviously that kind of also gave me affirmation. It made me feel a type of way about myself. So, yeah, I mean, I mean, I also like, you know, funny, like when you broke and stuff, I told you this, you got a lot of ideas, you know. I thought about like a Netflix special of like, you know, what happens to like, what happened to our parents and their trauma. I mean, my mom grew up with like a lot of abuse from my dad. And I mean, a lot of people in the neighborhood as well. There was a lot of alcoholism, there was a lot of GBV. There was a lot of that. And I always asked myself, like, what happens to that trauma? And a lot of the time it would be kind of masked behind humor, right? Because we'd make a joke the next day about it. It would be like, oh, you know, Mam Tandi's husband beat her up. And it'd be like, you know, it would be like, it would be a joke, you know? But I mean, I think that was their way of dealing with trauma, is laughing. And the Netflix special would have been called, And We Laugh Through It. Because that's what happens with a lot of black and brown trauma. We laugh through this shit, right? Because we gotta provide, the black experiences, we keep it moving, keep it moving, keep it moving, keep it moving. And then like, you know, all of a sudden, Joe Black is bipolar, and like we don't know how to deal with bipolar because, you know, it's some white illness. Or you know, it's he's just mad, or you know, you need to go see Kilwele, or am I saying it right? Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. You know, he's mad. That kind of thing. So, I don't know if I answered your question again.
No, it's no perfect. I mean, I think I've had the privilege of asking you enough questions on camera. So I just want the audience to then engage with what they saw, the journey you've been on, and most importantly, obviously, the work that you do. So, Mr. Roving Mike, and we'll start in the same way that we did the previous segment, just, you know, initial thoughts from what you watched, the work that Mervyn is doing, and some of the things that he's been very kind enough to be open to share.
All right. It's probably the dumbest question, but yeah, the question unasked, yeah, it's whatever. But so I've in my friendship circle, I mean, these are guys that I grew up with for the longest time, but we can't have vulnerable conversations, you know? We all know we're going through shit. I mean, maybe there's 4 divorces in the squad, but we'd rather talk about soccer. How do you create those spaces, you know, in terms of being able to have vulnerable conversations with your friends? Because it might sound like a dumb question, but for real, it's like the most difficult thing to have. I mean, I've been in pain, and whenever I've been in pain, I just decided to exclude myself from the guys.
Yeah, first of all, I don't think there's any dumb questions. Yeah, and I say that because if I don't understand a word, I ask what that word means, and that's okay because I'm learning and I'm figuring it out. But yeah, for me, yeah, it's tricky. I mean, it's also like I had to kind of position, because I think for me, being in recovery created that platform, right? I go to a 12-step meeting, I go to an AA meeting, I can share whatever's going on for me, you know, in an authentic way. Being in rehab as well, you know, so the conditioning was already, you know, programmed. And I've also had to kind of build friendships, like, you know, like last year I went through like the most, and it's interesting that I and also I think also what was modeled to me was white people are vulnerable. If that makes sense, you know. White people are vocal. So what I had to do is I had to create spaces, and hence, you know, with the men stuff, with the Mankind Project, I did this work in 2006, and I built those relationships. You know, I always say I come from good men, and when I say that, you know, and it's given me the privilege of traveling a lot, you know, for this work. Not so long ago, I was in London, and we were doing an MKP weekend, and it was just beautiful just to, I don't know these men don't look like me, but it was just beautiful that I could be in a space where I could be authentic, and I can talk about my truth of, like, you guys, there's so many white men here, I feel overwhelmed. I feel like I've got to be the black guy that speaks well. Do you know what I mean? Like, because that's also part of the target of being the only black man sometimes in a room where, you know, we've got to, like, you know, sit a certain way, speak a certain way, behave a certain way, you know, because I can't be the angry black man, you know, because you're always angry. But I think, like, I had to create those spaces. I mean, the thing is, for me, it's like, this is the world I want to live in. I had to create the world I want to live in, especially with the holding space as well. This is the vision. I mean, it's like that companies have that vision, mission, and action. So the action, the vision was there. I saw the mission, but I had to act on it. Do you know what I mean? It's like when I acted on it also, you know, it was like I ended up in Justice's DMs, and he probably thought, like, hey, what's up with this, brah? You know, he's trying to, like, hit on me or something, you know. And then his brother was like, no, this guy, he does this stuff, you know, and he had to kind of verify me. And then, you know, we could build and we could have a conversation over breakfast on creating the holding space. Do you know what I mean? So I hear you, it is difficult. I know. I mean, there's certain men I can't. It's like saying I come from a township. Why would I go to another township on holiday? So, and I'm not saying it in an arrogant way. It's more like I know what township experiences are like. So, why would I go talk about vulnerability when we're trying to eat in certain spaces? It's not helpful. Do you know what I mean? I had to kind of create that network. And resources. Resources is the big one. Someone asked us a question the other day. They said, but what happens to boys in Aldos? You know, with the gang violence and all the stuff. What about creating these spaces there? Sure. You know, and again, it's about creating those resources. We need to, I think for me, the biggest struggle we have as black people is we're unresourced. And I say we, but I like saying I. But that's the way I feel, actually. That's the way I feel. It's my opinion. Opinions are like arseholes. Everyone has one. Do you know what I mean? So, but that's my opinion. Is creating that.
I think maybe in terms of the question that you asked, I'd also like to reflect it back to the guys that are also in the audience, you know, because part of the reason why, you know, I obviously wanted Mervyn here is to be like, okay, guys, what form must can to happen for men to be vulnerable? I see a couple of hands up. Yeah,
a lot of us guys are living survival mode, and we tend to do things on a surface level. Because I mean, I'm going to take a moment to brag about my friends. Is one of them. We have a healthy relationship, like which we can be vulnerable. We have a safe space, not just when you buy out with the business or material things. Emotionally, I can go to him and say, hey man, I didn't like how you did 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and how can we resolve this? So we've got a healthy conflict, a space for healthy conflict, a space to share with you where you are maybe lacking in life, be it yourself or be it your romantically or finances, whatsoever. So with guys, what I've noticed, Uti, especially black men, we don't say I love you to each other. That love you comes with a condition. I love you, no homo. What is that? Like, how am I going to be vulnerable to you if you're going to tell me no homo? There's no safe space. Automatically, you're just cutting me off from your friendship. And I've noticed us guys, most times, the only time we're vulnerable with each other must dagi is only when there's booze around. And like that's when you are vulnerable. You're able to say your trauma and everything else. And it's, I think for us guys, you need to create that space to have that vulnerability. That doesn't, and it must be safe so you don't feel judged or mok dagi and then chigi now your news are everywhere. And you need to just create a safe space. Man, I've got good friends. I love my friends. When we talk, we say I love you. We talk and say I love you. I love you. It's not jokes. I love you. That's how it is. So I mean, I love my friends. So yeah, it's one of them. Say hi to me. Oh. So yeah, just create a safe space. Yeah, that's it. No, I'm done.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I find it so interesting that you mentioned the I love you part. Lindsay and I were actually at a funeral, and he actually filmed you coming from the funeral. And the one thing our friend that we lost said to another good friend of ours was, I love you. And he said it a lot. And what he did say when he was giving his speeches, I wish I'd taken him seriously when he told me he loved me. I wish the Zulu man in me, those were his words, didn't fend him off, because he'll never hear those words, I love you, from him again, because he's gone now, you know? So I applaud it, I commend it, and can it continue? It's needed. You don't just need to hear I love you from home, from your mother, from your grandmother, from your dad, from your woman, from your kids. You actually need to hear it from your friends, from your male friends, you know? Even when your girlfriends tell you I love you, it's not the way your woman loves you, but it's so important. And I mean, one of the things I was talking to Murphy about before we went on air was something I thought of saying was, Indoda must cry. It's so important because, and I saw that. It was so hard to watch. They're not even, I want to say grown men, but when you see guys younger than you falling apart because they've lost someone they loved. And again, did they tell him enough that they loved him? Did they receive him saying that I love you in a way that could have fundamentally changed their life and how they live? Yeah, so thank you for that.
So, to take a book from the girlfriends that we have a group of girlfriends, right? And you are able, as a girlfriend, to go to another girlfriend in your PJs and crying and sobbing and knock at the door and be vulnerable, right? So I feel like that safe space is already created because you have put yourself in a vulnerable place. So what I'm assuming the brother's name is Fiso. He already put himself. No one pushed him. No one said you must. No one said you have to. He put himself in a vulnerable position. Thus, he has created a vulnerable space. So for me, the key is that it takes one man. It takes one voice. It takes one person to be like, yo, guys, life is showing me flames in this space. And if that one person says, yo, guys, mina, yo, young shaya, lento lebati life, we're all going to be like, oh, okay, my shaya was Fiso. That means that what are we? we are comfortable to be vulnerable in that space. I just wanted to answer your question. So if one of your friends, if you are that friend that says, I don't want to talk about the Chelsea and Manchester United game. I actually want to talk about your guys' life is showing me all of the things. Because that's what women do. When women gather, it's like we have no boundaries. We talk about everything. And we are naked with each other. Whether it's sex, whether it's partner, whether it's motherhood, whether it's career, we are vulnerable. That's why women vulnerable spaces are available and they are in. But when it takes one voice to be like, guys, life is showing me flames. And when you say it, then the next man will be like, even if it's not immediate, you'll get a text, you'll get a phone call, be like, hey, brother, what you said, actually, I am going through the same things. I am going through the same flames that life is showing you. So for me, a vulnerable space is created by vulnerability, if that makes sense. Sorry.
Sorry, honestly, I think you took all the words out of my mouth. For me personally, and I'm just gonna try and answer your question, right? How do we become vulnerable in that space? First, you need to be honest and open with yourself. For me, it took a lot to admit that I'm not okay. It was a Tuesday morning, I woke up, I was supposed to go to work, but I was like, fuck this. I've got a bottle of brandy in my drawer, I've got Coke in the fridge, brandy and Coke. I'll drink now, I'm not gonna go to work. But I looked at it and I was like, no, I can't keep doing this, It took so much in me at that point to accept that I'm not okay. I can't do this alone. It was not even more than an hour. I took my phone and I booked myself in for therapy. You understand? Because I was just at a point where do I want to continue drinking or do I want to take the knife and kill myself? Because this is too much for me. And because I have not allowed myself to be open and honest with myself, I can't tell you as my friend. But I needed to be honest with myself. When I attended my first session, and the therapist told me, look, buddy, this is the report. You are deemed suicidal, depressed. I've always been a joker by nature. I'm an open person, right? And when I looked at that report, I was like, no, probably they mismatched the names. This can't be me. Me, suicidal. But it took so much in me to accept that, listen, buddy, I can't do this on my own. This is who I am, right? And so the first step is I needed to be open with myself. And then in me being open with myself, it created the space for me to also be vulnerable with my friends. And say to my friends that, listen, I'm not okay. I'm not coping with 1, 2. And sometimes you risk being the laughing stock, if I can put it that way, Because again, look, as I'm out, you must blow me. We always want to be macho. No, I'm okay. Yeah, everything is okay. And we always put certain titles on each other. Okay, Lindile is this, you that, And you always also want to maintain that. But I needed to reach a certain level of vulnerability with myself and be honest with myself in order for me to learn to be open and vulnerable with my friends. Because what I've come to learn is in me being vulnerable with my friends, I've learned that all my friends needed was just that one voice, which was I, to say that, gents, fuck this bullshit. I am not coping 1, 2, 3. Whatever issue you're facing. And all I needed was for me to speak up. And in me speaking up, it opened doors for my friends to also either be vulnerable in an open platform or on a personal scale to say that, listen, and I kid you not, just last night, one of my friends came to visit me, and we had an open discussion. And I told them about everything I've been through, because to a certain extent, we always want to keep shit together, and your friends end up putting you on a certain pedestal. And that on its own, again, is just too much to bear. Because now, oh, how do I open up? And yet, Ulindile looks at me as this person where everything is perfect. And I had an open discussion with my friend last night, and he opened up. And he was crying and telling me, you know what, I needed to hear this, buddy. Thank you so much. And to answer your question, all I'm trying to say is, be honest with yourself, know your shortcomings, accept where certain shortcomings for you as a man are, where you need help. And as soon as you speak up, you don't know how much that next friend of yours needed to hear from you saying, I'm not coping here. You saying, I'm vulnerable. I am not coping. I either need to attend therapy or do this or that. Is the difference between life and death for them. Because we try and carry so much, we put each other on fucked up pedestals. Yeah, nobody on a Saturday, so yay, and I've already put you on a spot where for you, it's like, gents, hold back. But you open up, and that's all we need, gents, as guys. We need to learn to talk about these things amongst each other, be vulnerable. Me showing you my tears is not me, I don't know, in lack of a better word, but me showing you inyembezi zami. Loko kumele kukuchazele ukuthi I am not okay, to a point whereby I am willing to cry in front of you, because that's how much this shit hits me internally. I am not doing this for show, cameras or anything, but I've been on a journey. I'm not going to say it's been the smoothest. I'm still on a journey. I'm still finding myself. And even from the earlier video you showed, I related so much, because at one point when I hit rock bottom, the only thing or the only place I could link with Indotayam, me, was going to the gym. But it's a journey. Let us be open about that, gents, amongst each other. To your partner, create that support structure for yourself. Whether it's your partner, your family, but have that. And in you having that, you being able to be open about your weaknesses, that's the biggest blessing, if anything.
So in holding space, when a man goes too long, we say to him, have mercy.
Anyway, I hope I've answered you. Sorry I took long as a space, but it just hits home for me. But thank you for the space.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, obviously to everyone, thank you for sharing. But I think something that's also really important on the other end for us both as as men, women, non-binary folk, is I think we're speaking a lot, very importantly so, about this idea of if one person starts to share, that can open up the room. I think how that sharing is received is also really important. And we have an incredible accountability to each other, to men, to our society, to make sure that when we do receive that vulnerability, we handle it with great care and kindness and empathy. Because I think, and what happens, and not even necessarily that this is something I've experienced with men, something I've experienced with women, and so I imagine is worse for men, is someone shares something, people dismiss it, and then they go, well, I'm never going to try that again. And so I think really holding ourselves to that really important standard, and it's obviously like a journey as well, and we're going to learn, and we need to hold ourselves accountable. But yeah, I think just holding ourselves to that high standard of we have to receive with care and kindness and genuine concern.
So Mervyn, in my other life, I am a youth mentor. So I love working with young people. A youth mentor. Sorry, I'm a youth mentor. So I love working. Gotta articulate. There we go. So I'm a youth mentor. I love working with young people, and I work primarily with university students across institutions in the country. So my question to you would, it's kind of two-part, but it's firstly, sort of what are your perspectives? And I don't know the age group of men you work with, but what are sort of like your perspectives on the state of youth manhood in South Africa right now? And as people as sort of like adults right now, right? Having these conversations, do you feel that we're actually doing justice by our young men, and to start them onto the right trajectory far sooner than where we are right now? And based on the work that you're doing, do you have sort of any advice for someone who actually, on a regular basis, interacts with young people and is sort of like, has the responsibility of sort of holding that space sacred and holding it very responsibly, and sort of setting them onto the correct trajectory from, the young ages? I work with students from first year up until through final year, and I'm now going to start working with postgrad students as well, and UCT alumni and so forth. So sort of what are the things that I should also be trying to build into my programs and my projects, and sort of the engagements that I should be looking at in order to hold the space responsibly? And the reason why I asked this question, and please have mercy, is that a couple of months ago I did an exercise with a group of my students where I asked them to give me one thing that they are grateful for, so something that's happening right now, and then give me something that you are hopeful for, so something that makes you think and look into the future with hope, because I don't believe human beings were designed to live without hope, right? When you look into the future and there's not even a birthday or a Christmas or a lunch or an event like this that you can look forward to that holds you in that space, I think life gets very dark very quickly. And so one of the kids that was there he's originally from PE, and like the sort of like the bad neighborhoods in PE, a colored neighborhood. So he said to me, and this is in a room similar to like this, right? So all the kids are sharing and so forth. There's about maybe 15 of us in this session. He says to me, I'm grateful to be alive. And then people are like, because it's almost like, I think when somebody says I'm grateful to be alive, it's like, well, duh, toy, like, dig deeper, more, give me more, cry, Mervyn. You know what I mean? Like, and then I'm like, I calm the room, and I'm like, guys, let the man finish. You know what I mean? Let him speak. And I'm like, okay, fine, tell me more. And he says, this was last year, late last year. He was 19 at the time, and he's in his first year. And when he was 18, he saw his cousin get gunned down, right? Like next to him. And the guy died and bled out on the side of the road because of gang violence. So when he was 17, that happened. A year later, around the same anniversary, his other cousin, who was now 18 at the time, gets gunned down once again, like within very close proximity to this kid. So he's seen people just like die on the side of the road and literally bleed out, like the way you see it in the movies. And now he's 19. He's in first year at the University of Pretoria. He's an anomaly, is what this kid is actually telling me. That, Mo, I'm so grateful to be alive, because statistically, I shouldn't be here right now. I should have also been gunned down like my cousins. So I am so grateful to be alive. Like, you know what I mean? Like in that sort of like, not like this pie in the sky ideology of life, but just like so conscious and aware of how not possible this could have been. So, which is sometimes I think, like you only have to miss an accident by this much to be like, yo, dude. You know what I mean? Like, y'all could be visiting me in hospital right now to actually appreciate just how small and thin the margins between life and death sometimes can be. So I could really relate to what this kid is telling me, actually. So like, I've been in those situations where you're so conscious and aware of how fickle your life is that it's actually petrifying. Then I'm like, okay, fine, thanks for sharing that. And then I ask him, okay, but then what are you hopeful for? And this it broke my heart, but it also gave me hope. And he says, I'm hopeful that my mother will see me and love me the way she used to. And I'm like, whew, that's heavy. Tell me more. And he says, I'm in first year now, I'm 19, I come from PE, like the gang-ridden area of PE, a lot of poverty, unemployment, and violence, and so forth. And he recently came out as gay to his family. And the only reason why he came out as gay was because he came to UP, and then you know how first year can be when you come from a certain kind of, background, right? It's like, oh my God, I'm in Pretoria, big city lights, like I'm gonna be living it up, I'm studying and I'm living a really good time. And so he for the first time in his life, he felt comfortable in his own skin and felt like he had the right to occupy space as a gay youth, as a gay colored youth from, that neck of the woods. He then says to me that then he went home over the break, earlier in the year, over the summer break, and he was just filled with so much sadness because the skin just didn't feel right, because he was still in the closet at the time. And at the end of the break, he then comes out to his parents, and what he said was that his mom just never looked at him the same ever again. And he said to me that my dad is my dad, I'm like, we're not close. Like, so he still talks to me, we banter about this and banter about that, but like, Mo, my mother now, a mother and her son, and he says this, a mother and her son, Mo. We were like this, you know what I mean? We were best friends. She was more than just a mother to me. But I feel like I've lost that just because I feel comfortable in my own skin. This was it was a session like that. Every student who was sharing was just like sharing some of the deepest things that even me left me changed, right? And I still really think about these things even till this day. And when I say I left that session with a great sense of just like, wow, that's so deep. Even me, I feel like I need to like share this with someone because it's so deep, but it was so beautifully deep. It left me feeling with hope that at least we're having 19-year-olds who are able to have these discussions at the age of 19 and so forth, right? Now, once again, have mercy. I know I'm a storyteller, so I always take the scenic route when I make a point or when I want to, say something. But I suppose my question is around that. That how do we ensure that we amplify those spaces and places for young people so that they too are able to have these conversations at a younger age, and we set them onto the right path?
No.
Is it on? Yeah. I don't want to kind of sit here and like be this like, proclaiming to like know how life works. I don't know shit. There's a lot I'm learning, but I think for me the one piece that I liked is that you creating that space for a 19-year-old colored gay man to be. Do you know what I mean? So, I think it kind of just boils down to what you were talking about, like being empathetic and, listening. And this person felt so safe and trusting you with their hearts and showed up just in a beautiful, authentic way by actually just, even you saying like, hey, hang on. Like his truth is, he's alive. And you acknowledging that made him feel that he could go deeper when you asked the other question. So, I don't know if that makes sense. Because already you creating that world, and thank you. Thank you for creating those spaces where that voice is heard, that suppressed, gay, colored voice doesn't matter. But you created that, so thank you. Yeah. I don't know if I'm answering your question. I think like, cause you're doing the shit, right? You're doing the work.
To say thank you for the beautiful work that you do. Can you hear me? Oh, okay, sorry. I wanted to say thank you for firstly sharing the story and the beautiful work that you do. I think we tend to take for granted the process of so-called death that you have to go through in order to be reborn and revive your true calling. And from the story that you've told and you're telling, I truly see that transition that you needed to go through, the things that you needed to go through to find the sense of language in order to then be able to speak the language that the people that you are assisting understand, and to be able to connect with them on that level, you know. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. And to just, you know, say, "Magwande, go away," you know, may you continue doing the beautiful work that you do, because there really is a space for it, you know. I was laughing to myself when you told the story about there's a part where you were supposed to cry and you struggled and you felt very bad about that. I remember during my spiritual journey, there's a part of the rites of passage where you are mandated to cry, right? Because it's part of one of the... Anyway, so you are mandated, and that's the one thing I could not do at all. I could do everything else, but that moment of, okay, Sibongile, khala phela, I could not cry. And I realized that it was because of that sense of always being strong and always being a valiant warrior of getting through whatever it is, and, you know, that I failed to have the bravery to let go and open myself up to feel the raw emotion, right? And by doing that, having the faith that I'm not going to fall and, you know, wither away, but, you know, I must trust the process, because by doing that, I'm actually giving, I'm growing, you know, I'm finding the true strength and, you know, moving on to, you know, being a better version of myself. So I found that quite interesting, that it not just happens in spiritual spaces, but in, you know, in other spaces too. With regards to creating safe spaces, I think we also need to, as you know, knowing yourself and your needs, we also need to have a sense of discernment of where we choose to open up to people. Because, you know, as much as we can say, I want to have a safe space with my friends, etc. Unfortunately, whether we like it or not, people can only meet us as deeply as how deep as they've met themselves, and it does not make your best friend or whoever like you any less or love you any less. They're just unable to be that for you, right? But can play a role in your life in other aspects. So then you find spaces like these, you know, and I don't think it should just be, I mean, yes, fine, it can be just a guy thing or a girl thing, but I think, you know, this is more value add for me, because it's not just you know, a singular narrative where we're able to say that, oh wow, walking in, by the way, you have this beautiful, strong persona. And then to sit here and realize that, geez, you are actually as human as the next person, because here you are asking such a delicate question, to say that how does somebody who is like me, and I'm sure you possibly get it a lot, that, you know, on complete judging face value, looks as if, but you truly are human just like the rest of us, you know. You know, do you get what I'm saying? And it's okay that to kind of, you know, test out things, to say, okay, can I, you know, be able to to say this to this person. And if you feel that you're not getting whatever it is that you need, it's okay to say, okay, clearly I'm just going to talk about fast cars with you. But, as time goes on, maybe there'll be an opportunity for me to open up a little bit more, which may trigger something in that friend to also realize that, okay, wait, there's this avenue that is unexplored that I could potentially also look within and find myself, I think I've been very blessed to have a group of people who are going through their own growth, their own finding themselves, sorting out their own ups and downs. Where, yeah, I'm almost done. Because we're all within that space of rediscovering and redefining and getting to know ourselves, we almost have created that bit of a safe space where we can be vulnerable with each other, and that's possible for everybody. I won't lie to you. Going through a spiritual journey it turns you upside down. It's like being inside a washing machine, tumble dryer, or tornado all at the same time. But I was quite lucky to have that support system, to be able to be raw in my emotion, even though, some of my friends would have not necessarily understood what it meant when I say, I feel like I'm going crazy because of this, but they gave me the platform to be able to express that, that's all I really needed from them at the time. I didn't expect them to understand the crazy dreams or whatever the case may be. I just needed somebody to just be on the other side of the phone, for example. So it is possible to find those type of spaces amongst strangers and friends.
Thank you.
Amen.
So quickly, I just want to say something, and I think this is important, especially for this thing of I experienced this years ago where one of my clients they were raped, and my response to that was, I'm sorry that we did that to you as men, because as men we rape, because as men you don't have the privilege that I have by walking on the street here. You can't leave your house because I've got male privilege and you've got your stuff. And what I'm trying to get to is that, because I don't want this thing to be like, those are bad men, these are good men. We are men. So, I don't want this thing of othering. I don't want us to. For me, I don't want to because that's kind of part of perpetuating the problem. Do you know what I mean? Like, those men there, those township men are terrible men, and these suburban men are
better men
or woke men or whatever bullshit there is. But I think it's for us to include. And not, it's like this discussion of men are trash. Yes, we are. We are trash. Because we need to take responsibility instead of, no, I'm not. Those guys are. Because then it's again that othering shit. And I think I think it's not helpful having that othering conversation, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
It does. I thought I heard something. Because I want to be respectful of people's time. I think lots to think about and obviously dissect. Mervyn, you're not going anywhere. Tabang's not going anywhere. If it necessitates another session like this or whatever the case may be, happy to do that. But I think obviously you guys are more than welcome to still stay and chat. But in terms of the formal program and all of that kind of stuff, what we will have, and Brother Man will direct me, is if there's further thoughts and perspective you want to share, we will be setting up right there, outside or wherever, you just want to share thoughts and perspective on camera, on video, and stuff, which will obviously be part of the content. But I just also, I don't want to keep you guys longer than you need to be. So that concludes, I would say, the formal part of it, and then happy for you guys to just hang around and for us to chat. Thanks so much for supporting.